John 6, 1-11. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. And Jesus went up on the mountainside, sat down with his disciples, and it goes on to say that when Jesus looked up, he saw a great crowd coming towards him. He asked Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than a half year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up, "Here is a boy with 5 small loaves of barley bread and 2 small fish, but how far will that go among so many?" And Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, so they sat down. There were about 5,000 men there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them, and they filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. Welcome to Debbie DeVries Ministries. Now, the feeding of 5,000 was a miracle of such magnitude that it's actually recorded in all 4 Gospels. And as always, there is so much to take in these 11 verses. But for today, we're actually just going to look at the miracle of multiplying. Now, Jesus' plans were to get some alone time with his disciples, and the plan was for rest, but also for spiritual refreshment. But he saw the crowd coming towards him, and he had compassion on them, so he changed his plans. He put rest aside, and he ministered to the people. Now, it's interesting to note that in verse 2, it tells us why the crowd came. It says, actually, the crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. They had been listening to his teaching and had been seeing his miracles. They therefore wanted to benefit from his miraculous powers. Their motives are skewed, but Jesus has compassion on them anyways. That's just who he is. And the crowd was large, and they were hungry. And so the problem, of course, became, how do we meet the needs of such a large crowd? Now, there were a few different options recorded in the different books on how to handle this seemingly impossible task. So solution number 1 is found in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They recorded that the disciples suggest Jesus send the crowd away. Get rid of the problem, if you will. But Jesus says, no, you give them something to eat. So then solution number 2 came from Philip in response to Jesus' test question, "Where shall we buy bread for these people?" Philip counted the cost, and the price was high. Philip had an accountant's mind. He put his mental calculator to work, and he concluded that the situation was financially hopeless. Jesus asked Philip where, and Philip thinks of how. Here's the thing, my friends. Philip could have said, because he was a disciple of Jesus, "I'm going to leave that one to you. I'm going to leave that one to you, Jesus," because he witnessed Jesus doing many, many miraculous things. Plus, he witnessed Jesus perform another miracle when there was a shortfall. He was there when Jesus turned the water into wine. He could have, with confidence, said, "You are able to provide," but he didn't. Now, solution 3 comes from Andrew. Andrew found a young boy who had a small lunch, 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, which, by the way, is considered a poor man's lunch. Andrew looked at the greatness of the problem and the meagerness of their resources. Can you relate, my friends? Can you relate? Now, the 4th solution comes from Jesus. The inability of the disciples to take care of this on their own showed Jesus' adequacy to fulfill the need. It's interesting to note that it was a little boy's lunch that Jesus used to feed the thousands. Children, along with women, were not seen as very important in this day and culture. And yet, once again, Jesus is going to use someone that in general was looked over to be part of his great work. Jesus seems to be in the business of using the weaker or the least important in the eyes of others or society to accomplish miraculous happenings. And he still does it today. He took the little boy's lunch, he blessed it, and then he broke it. He multiplied it, and he handed it out to the disciples, and in turn, the disciples fed the whole crowd. 5 loaves of poor man's bread and fish fed approximately 20,000 hungry people. I say 20,000 because 5,000 men were there. They didn't count the women and children, so they think that there was about 20,000 in all. The disciples had the incredible privilege of passing out what Jesus miraculously multiplied. Not only was the crowd satisfied, but there were also 12 baskets of bread left over. Now, has God given you the privilege to see a need? Do you view it as a privilege? Do you see a privilege, or do you see the need somewhere that you are being asked to join with him in the work that he is doing or about to do? Now, if you feel incapable, that you don't have sufficient resources, and you are too insignificant to be given the privilege to work with God, well, then I suggest, my friends, you buckle up, because you are probably exactly who God is looking to use. I'm just saying. Now, the young boy is to be commended for sharing his lunch with Jesus. So the question is will you share yours, so to speak? Will you share it? It's also significant that John mentions twice that Jesus gives thanks. So we read that in 6 verse 11. And if you go on a couple more verses, John recalls Jesus giving thanks for the bread. Now, by that act, Jesus is teaching us that God is the source of all good things and needful gifts. So I'm thinking that it is better for us to give thanks to God for what we have rather than to complain about what we don't have. Jesus shows that he is all sufficient and all powerful. He takes a little and makes it plentiful, plus. These people came to Jesus not for who he was, but what he could do for them physically, and he is full of compassion. He welcomes them wholeheartedly and warmly, and then provides powerfully for them. That's just who he is. Not only that, Jesus doesn't need anyone to help him do his work, and yet he invites us to join him. Can you imagine how this young boy felt as the unexpected happened? His small, meager offering turned into far beyond what was even needed. Jesus wanted his disciples to trust him and to know that he alone was able to meet the needs of the crowd. The disciples, you and I, are invited to trust Jesus and work alongside him with whatever resources we have, great or small. So what kind of situation has God allowed into your life that, quite frankly, you are not able to solve on your own? The disciples could not see how this child's lunch would be of any help. But a miracle happened, all because a young boy was willing to step forward and share the little that he had. So what's facing you today? What is it? What is overwhelming you? What's the need that needs a solution? Where is God inviting you to work alongside him? And my friends, what's in your lunch pail, so to speak? What resources do you have? Do they fall short? Where is the need? Where is it? Maybe it's actually something physical. Can you see where your help is required? I don't know, maybe in a family member, even a family you know, a friend, a neighbor, or maybe even a coworker in a financial crisis of some sort. Do you find yourself asking Jesus, how am I going to make a difference in anything I do to help, as I only have, figuratively, 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread to offer? Or is the need more on an emotional level, the need that you're being shown? Do you see someone who needs your love, your patience, your forgiveness, your time, but there just doesn't seem to be anything left in you yourself to give? You are busy, you are tired, worn out, or maybe you are even bruised yourself or hungry. But Jesus is asking you anyways, what's in your lunch pail? Now, what principle can we glean from Jesus' actions and words from today's passage? Because as I always say, we live in a different time, different place, and different culture, but Jesus does not change. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, which means He is still in the business of allowing you and I to join in and work with him. He is in the business of taking of what we have to give to him and multiply it as he sees fit to supply whatever need, not to be confused with want, he is going to miraculously provide a solution to. Is it your child? Or how about a daughter-in-law who needs patience and unconditional love, even though she doesn't know that that's what she needs from you? But your patience is running thin. Your heart has been broken by actions and words once again. But Jesus is asking you anyways, what's in your lunch pail? Are you willing to give what you have left within your heart, no matter how small you feel the supply of love and patience is, and let him multiply it as he deems necessary, when he deems necessary? Maybe it's even a coworker who is downright mean to you. Maybe she even bullies you, making work a hard place to be. But she needs kindness, not retaliation. She needs the kindness that comes from a woman who herself knows the kindness of Jesus. And Jesus is asking you, what's in your lunch pail? And maybe it's just 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, such a small supply for such a large task. Kindness to a bully. Give what you have to Jesus and let him multiply what you've entrusted to him. Maybe the need you have been asked to step into is ministry, women's ministry. Maybe you've been asked to go and love and minister to hurting, wounded, doubtful women who need hope and truth. What's in your lunch pail, Jesus is asking. Take what you have. Are you willing to take what you have? No matter how insignificant you feel, no matter how unqualified you feel you are, or how unpowerful you think your ability is to reach the very ones that God is asking you to reach. And are you willing to let him multiply what you've given back to him in obedience? What is it for you personally? Where is God inviting you to join him? Where is the need that he's revealing to you? And what is in your lunch pail, so to speak, my friends? And are you willing to give it all to Jesus in order to have the privilege of working alongside with him where he calls you to work? Will you dare to be like the little boy and step forward? Give what you have and watch as our Jesus does whatever it is he's going to do with our 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Will you dare to trust what you have to give, no matter how small it is, when given to Jesus, is sufficient? Will you dare to give to Jesus what is in your lunch pail? He is a miracle worker and will multiply what you give him in his time and his way to accomplish his purposes. Will you dare to step into the privilege of being called to work with him, even when the task seems far too big with your meager supplies? Will you dare to trust him, my friends, and open up your lunchbox and give him what you have? Amen.